Oh, technical glitches. Well, hello everyone. I think we had a bit of a technical glitch. Whenever Kyle is away, we do find a way to make it a bit more exciting and different every single time. So I hope everyone is doing well and happy Monday, everyone. And I'm joined today by my very good friend and colleague and trainer extraordinaire, Lionel Vicidomini. How are you, Lionel?
Hello, I'm doing good.
Excellent. And today we're going to see various. We're going to let me say it properly. We are going to demystify various post-production things that have to do with compositing and Redshift. So before we do that, I have to go through the housekeeping, and after that, I'm going to hand the floor to Lionel. So if you want to see what events are happening currently or in the future, go to the Max on Events page, and you have a great list here. You can search through this depending on venue, dates, and status, and all that. The videos, although they are live streamed on the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, the Maxon YouTube channel, and the Red Giant YouTube channel, if you want to watch them recorded, always go after the fact to the Maxon Training Team channel. So all the videos are there alongside quick tips and thousands of videos and content which you can dedicate the rest of your life watching, being educated, and not working. And of course, all our channels have different content as well. And don't forget to go to the Maxon ZBrush channel to learn this amazing, the best sculpting software on the planet. And yeah, I'm always envious when I go through this of what amazing stuff people are creating. Now, if you're interested in becoming Maxon Cinema 4D certified or a Maxon certified trainer, go to the certifications page. And you go down here where it says Cinema 4D user certification. And this little link, certification topics, will give you the topics that we have constructed our certification on. Now, even if you're not interested in becoming certified, it will give you a good guide on what we consider at Maxon the fundamental information you need to know in Cinema 4D in order to become certified. And you may find some topics here which you've never thought about because we don't know what we don't know, which you will get the opportunity to go and study or ask questions on. Finally, because we are very thankful for your participation in our shows, we can offer you a free t-shirt. And for the month of February, the code is Redshift AOV, one word, no spaces or caps. And finally, if you want to spend the rest of your years watching educational content, go to the newsuniversity.maxon.net website, and we have an enormous amount of content in there. You can search by all these categories. And don't forget that we also have the old cineversity.com website that still has thousands of tutorials. Some of them are out of date when it comes to the interface, but the information is relevant, and you're surely going to learn a lot of things over there. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Lionel to give us some information about a new tutorial series he made, and then get on with the content. Over to you, Lionel.
Thank you, Nazman. So yes, let me show my screen. Can you see it? So yeah, I've just released this course about the simulation on Cinema 4D. So it's a volume 4 actually of my complete training, and it talks all about simulation. I took quite a long time to do it because I wanted everything to be top notch, and it's just been released today. So you can go ahead, and I have a code for you, Maxon Training Team fan. Well, I hope to have it for $24 only. So it's quite there's quite a lot of content, and it's everything about rigid bodies, soft bodies, etc., etc. How to blend them together. So that's it about my own stuff. Now I want to talk about the subject for today, which is compositing inside After Effects. So I have done already this some time ago, and this is the refreshed version because a lot has been going on since. There has been ACCG implemented, Redshift has evolved, After Effects is easier to use, and I wanted to do a whole series about that. And this week we're going to see very simple compositing, the basics, because more than often you just need to have a few AOV to have great result, how to use that with ACCG, how to get everything inside After Effects, and how to use the looks to have some composition. You can see a lot of change between this one and this one. Actually, I should show, this is the original render, and this is after a few pass. Quite different, as you can see. There is a lot of variation about that. We will see how to composite the Z depth and the problem we can have with that. And we'll talk a little bit about EXR, because EXR are great, and they are not that heavy on the hard drive if you know how to use it using Redshift. So I guess this is it. So we can start. So yeah, today is just simple compositing. We will talk about advanced compositing in the next week. About everything about masking is for the end of the month, because I want to spend quite some time on it. This one is very simple. Okay, so let me present you the scene. So I'm sure you recognize it's from the Cinebench scene. So Maxon has been kind enough to give me for a demonstration, and everything has been set up the way I got it. I just changed a few stuff, nothing much. And what is interesting in this scene is we have a lot of lighting source. We have Z depth, we have SSS, subsurface scattering, we have translucency, we have shadows, we have everything in it. And that's interesting because we can see all the different paths and how to set up them inside After Effects. Okay, so this is the start of the scene with everything in it, and nothing about the AOV yet. So let's take a look at the Redshift render view to see how it looks. And this is more or less the result you have when you run the Cinebench scene. So I just tweaked a few things, but really it's the same thing. So you can see here we have a background. We have some post-effects going on. That will be important because it adds a lot to the scene. You can see without. Actually, there is also the exposure of the camera. You can see this is the basic scenes, and this is after our color control and so on. We have some bloom, very important, with the candle, the flare, and the streak here. And the lamp and the candle are self-emitting meshes. All right, so what can we do with that? Of course, we could work on the lighting and so on, but I won't do anything of that. I will just tweak the path to see what we can get. So let's see. First, let's talk a little bit about ACCG. This scene has been converted to ACCG. You can see it here, color management. Actually, I had to convert it, so I did it just by clicking on the button here. To go to ACCG, you just select color, open color IO. Then if you have loaded a scene which hasn't been created with ACCG, you need to convert it. Then we have these messages. And don't do it twice or more than that, because you're going to mess up your color. That's very important to know. You only do it once. If you start a scene from scratch and you start it in open color AO ACCG, you don't need to do that. That's only if you want to convert a scene. Okay. Then once you have done that, you will be working in ACCG. You don't really care about it anymore because it's all under the hood. But for compositing, you have to know that you are working with ACCG. So here, I'm going to set up my AOV. So you go to the Redshift AOV manager here, and you get all your AOV. So before that, if you open a scene that it's not yours, you can just take a look here in the render settings. You go to the Redshift engine here and check here in your AOV that's enabled, because it could be disable. In that case, you can do anything you want here. You won't see your AOV. And we will see here a few very interesting options later. Okay, so once it's enabled, now I can just add my AOV. And you can see we have really a bunch of them. So we will see most of them during this month. But right now, we're going to see only the essentials ones, the one you really need. And with those, you can do a lot of stuff already. So we're going to start with the diffuse lighting. So if you want to recreate a simple scene, it will be diffuse lighting, then global illumination. If you have emitting meshes, like my candles inside the scene here, or the background, you're going to use here emission. You're going to use reflection almost every time. Once you have any material with reflection, you're going to use it. And along with it, you will use the specular. So about that specular lighting, what is the difference between reflection and specular lighting? Reflection are the reflection of the object between them. And the specular lighting is the reflection of the light itself. So if you think about a dome light using a HDRI image, this is going to appear in the specular lighting. The object between them is the reflection. We're going to add the refraction. So refraction is anything that's transparent, glass material, and so on. So for example, here our lamp, the window, and well, that's it, but that's enough. You're going to add subsurface scattering, SSS, subsurface scatter. Okay, that's, of course, if you use subsurface scattering. We do have some here with the wax candle, with the plant here. I think here with here at the fabric. And that's about it. We will be using later the depth, but I want to see that on another, it will be during this session, but later. And you can just ignore anything that's labeled filter and raw. That we will be seeing that next week. It's very interesting, very powerful, but you don't need them if you want to do just simple compositing. We won't see either this week the volume fog emission, volume lighting. I just disable it in this scene. It's pretty easy to compose, but there is a few things to know about it. I wanted to keep it simple because most of the time you just need those. All right, now I have everything here. I'm ready to see how it looks. So I can just launch here my Redshift render view. And it's updating. And we will see here the progressive rendering. So actually, let's switch to our bucket. Like we can already see here our different AOV. So the diffuse lighting, the emission, the GI, reflection, refraction, SSS, and the specular lighting. Okay, so every one of them seems a bit dark, but of course, when you're going to add them together, you get to the beauty. Okay, on the beauty, you can see we have our postfix, the glow behind the window, here the star filter on the candle. This is something we're going to keep and we'll be using. So we just need one last AOV. Because of that, the postfix. Let's go back here in our AOV manager, which is the beauty. So the beauty will be actually the final rendering without the postfix. All right, we'll be rendering the final image with postfix. That will be the or let's call it final image. And the beauty is the same thing without postfix, which is important because we want to recreate our glow and star filter inside After Effects. So strictly speaking, we don't really need this beauty. This is just to make sure that everything is working the way it should. But I still think it's interesting to have it. Okay, so now to save all that, we will be using here, of course, the save button. And I'm going to save regular image and multipass image. So why do I save a regular image? Because this one, I will get a very simple image in JPEG with all the ACCG baked in, okay? Because this is a SDR format, so low resolution format, and we will see our render. So I'm going to create a new, let's call it final render. I'm going to put the new one here. So let's call it simple final. And this is actually the multipass image, the most important one. So you must save it in OpenEXR. Okay, you don't have any choice. This is the only format that's going to work. And you will use the 32-bit per channel. Okay, I'm going to save the same path. So just by copy pasting, because this is a JPEG, this is OpenEXR, I can have the same name. Okay, in the format, in the OpenEXR, I'm going to choose here the DWAA, which is lossy. But actually, believe me, you can use it, even though it says lossy. I have never had any problem with it. It just works perfectly with all the work and compositing I have done. I didn't have any problem with that, even though it's a lossy format.
Lionel,
using,
can I interrupt
yes.
a second? So the advice I was given a long time ago, because things may have changed, by a developer was that DWAB would produce the smaller of files. Would you happen to know if there are any visual differences between Dua and Duab?
I haven't. I have tested actually. Even with the non-lossy compression, I couldn't see a big difference. I guess with very high resolution, it could make a difference. Also, if you use very complex compositing, deep compositing, I guess that would make a difference. But you cannot use deep compositing with After Effects. But I haven't seen any difference. There is this document which is very interesting. You will see that in the links, which is an article about the OpenEXR image compression with test and how it works and so on. It's very interesting because you can see here a summary at the end, summary by usage and type of image.
Yeah, I would like to add a bit of a comment in what you just said. So some of us learn by reading stuff, right? The normal people, but then other people learn by experimenting. What I like to do, because I'm in category two, I love reading, but I learn nothing from reading. What you could always do, which is what one of the things that Lionel said, is for a particular image, create a single frame using different compression methods. And then if you take them into After Effects or Photoshop and use the difference effect overlay, and then take that result and use your levels to really, really crunch it, you will get an actual pixel by pixel image of what one is different from the other. So there are ways for you to discover if in a particular scene, because depending on the lights you have, depending on the textures you have, some differences may be visible more in one image rather than another. So my suggestion is to try that experiment. If you're wondering what's the best way, find out for that particular setup. Just create two renders using two different compression methods, a single frame, save it, overlay it in After Effects or Photoshop, and use the difference blending method. And that will give you the numerical difference per pixel from one image and the other. And again, add an adjustment layer on top and use your levels to compress that so you can get that extreme difference. But if you can't see it with your naked eye in your
Yeah.
image, then there is no, there's a theoretical difference and not an actual difference. And that's what I have to say for now.
Yeah, that's what I did. It's interesting because yes, when you use the difference blending mode, you can see a lot of difference. But on the eye, it's well, I don't see any difference. Sometimes when you know exactly where to look, yes, but barely. But of course, it must make a difference. I mean, if you do some very important compositing change, but my take on that is when you do compositing is just to add a cherry on top. You're not going to change the whole look of your image. You're just going to make it slightly better. And for that, you can just use smaller file like DWA, DWAB, which are very good and compress a lot. But more on that, we will see that there is a way to even more compress the image without any apparent loss. So anyway, here we have everything set up. This is also U16 float. This is, well, it should be named a float because this is a way to use reduce 32 bits. I won't go too much in the details, but the naming of this is a bit strange. You will see that when we use the Redshift output format. So anyway, everything is set up. I'm saving just one image, and I'm going to hit the render. And we'll see how it looks. So actually, it's a pretty fast render. That's what I like with this scene, which is very well optimized. So I can afford to do it live. And then we're going to import it inside After Effects. So yeah, something interesting. Yeah, if you take a look here at the render, you can see there is no glow. There is not the bloom, neither the streak appearing. It's going to appear at the end. So let's take a look here. Almost done. And then you can see it. Okay, so just before, what you saw was the beauty. And this is the final composite, the final image with everything on. Okay, so now let's go to After Effects. I'm going to start over by creating a new project. And yes, my After Effects is in French. I just forgot to change it, but I don't think that's going to be a bother. So yes, in After Effects, you don't have much to do, but you need to do it. Otherwise, it won't work. But compared to the last tutorial I did on that, which was very complex, now it's pretty easy. You just go here to the project preferences. And you're going to switch in color from Adobe Color Manage, which is the default, to OCIO Color Manage. But that's not all. You don't want to use this preset, but this one, CG. Okay, AC is 1.3 CG. All right, and that's it. You need to change your depth to 32 bits per channel, and that's it. Everything else is set up accordingly, and it's going to work. Okay, you're in scene ACCG for the color space, and for the display, you are in display SDR video. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, and we're going to import what I just created. So compositing, final render. We have the JPEG and the EXR. So let's import them both. For this one, the EXR, it's very important to check that you create a composition. Okay, it will be the case also for the JPEG, but that's not a problem. Because I have asked for the EXR to create a composition, it asks me this. I'm going to click on OK. This is the default settings. All right. And now we can take a look at the scene. So this is the assemble scene. Just before, we can see here the contact sheet, which is everything laid out on one composition. Okay, that's just to check if everything is right. Now, if I go to the assemble, we have the assemble. Okay, on top we have the RGB. Let's take a look with the JPEG. And if I take my JPEG and I put it in the composition, you will see, no, that's not correct. Of course, because this is a JPEG, so this is a SDR format, and it cannot contain ACCG inside. It's too, you don't have the room for it. I'm oversimplified it. I'm hearing Dr. Sassi correcting me in my mind. So yeah, this is not quite that, but this is SDR, so it cannot be ACCG. So I just need here to change. So I'm going to here to interpret footage interpretation, I think, in English. And here in the color, we're going to change from ACs to down there sRGB display SDR video. And now we have the correct color. Okay. If we go back to the assemble, you can see they are the same. Okay, that's important, and that show that it works. Our EXR are reading the good format, and here we have the transform. If I want to there, we can see the raw file which looks wrong, but is not, because this is the actual data, and this is the data after the color transform for our screen. Okay, so now let's take a look. Here we have the RGB. The RGB is the final composite with everything on, postfix and so on. So we have our glow visible. If I take my beauty, put it on top, we can see this is the same thing without postfix. So you can see the difference without. Okay, so the RGB here, the final composite, has all the postfix button, adding the glow and so on. And this is the actual raw render, the beauty. Okay, so I'm going to disable both. And now we have all our individual paths. So here the math is very, very, very simple. Everything is on add mode. That's why I'm calling that simple compositing, because you just need to put diffuse lighting. Well, actually, you can put either one at the bottom, because it just adds. Either way, it's going to get you the same result. But I like to have the diffuse lighting on the bottom, because it's the base layer, and then everything on top will be add.
Can I a small intervention?
Yes.
So there are two main principles when it comes to compositing different AOVs. We have the ones you show which add light to the scene, because every one of your AOVs is participating more and more light. It's, imagine if you have a room with 10 lights and you start turning them on one by one. That's why it's additional. You have to add them, because each one contributes more light to the scene. What happens is that when we have effects that reduce light, for example, shadows, ambient occlusion, and stuff like that, in that case, you will not use add for your compositing. You will use multiply, which is a darkening. So the general concept, the most oversimplified concept of compositing AOVs is that the AOV that is a product of light, because in the absence of light, everything is black. So whatever we see is a contribution of a light source. That's why you add them up to get to your final beauty shot. Whereas if you have things that subtract light, again, ambient occlusion or shadows, you will not add that. You will multiply it, because multiply removes light. It adds black on top. Would that be a correct oversimplification of the process? I know.
Yes, actually, it's not even oversimplification, because this is the way it works. You're not supposed to use anything else than add or multiply. This is strictly the only mode you're going to use. You might use subtract just because it's the opposite of addition. We will see that with the shadow next week. But everything is either add or multiply. Very simple. You just have to know which one and the correct order. Because, of course, if you have multiply and add living together, then the order count, of course. There is an order operation. We will see that later.
There was a question that I think you answered. So what pass do you need to save so that it doesn't have any post effects on it?
The beauty.
The
This is
beauty.
the
So,
beauty. The beauty, you can see here, this is the composite with everything. Okay,
yeah,
this is the beauty on top of it, and you don't see any difference because this is correct compositing. You must have exactly the same result. If it looks brighter or I don't know, with more contrast, you did something wrong. Okay, it
okay.
must be exactly the same as we can see here because with beauty, the beauty and the all composite is exactly the same. But of course, the RGB here is different because the RGB has the postfix with it. All right.
So that is the question. If you want to separate only the post effects, is it necessary to take the beauty without the post effects and the final render with the post effects and do a difference? Is that the only way you can extract it?
Yes, yes, this is the only way, and we've been asking for some time to have a proper postfix AOV. I
Yeah.
hope sometime we will get it. But for now, it's you're supposed to do that. And I guess the reason is very simple: is you're not supposed to use a postfix. Postfix is just to mess around, to get an idea where you want to do things, and then you're going to do the proper compositing, the proper postfix inside After Effects, inside Nuke, inside Fusion, and so on. We're
That's
not
very
really supposed to use postfix, but we do.
Yeah, that's very, very important. Post effects are nothing more than the equivalent effects you could do, and we have in our Maxon One product a huge array of plugins that can do post effects spectacularly. So, yeah, just like Lionel said, use that as a preview of what you're trying to do. But if you want to do proper compositing, all the post effects need to be done in post.
Yeah, but actually, I really would like to have a postfix AOV. Even
Every-
though I'm saying that I like it because most of the time I get good result with just postfix. I'm happy with it. I would like to tune it down or up. And well, you have to do that convoluted thing that you subtract and so on, that I won't show. Instead, we'll be recreating the effect.
Can
So
I
yes,
quickly can I quickly address a
yep,
few questions quickly, the ones that don't require answers? So, the question: have the Cinema 4D scene available for download? Not this one. This is part of Cinebench, and it's been provided by Maxon to Lionel. This is something you need to ask Maxon to do for you. So I'm sorry, but we can't share that scene. We have another question. How does this work with other rendering engines, Arnold? Exactly the same. Export
yeah.
your AOVs, and all the principles that Lionel is talking about should work with every modern renderer. But we still suggest you use Redshift.
Yes, I would even go further that in Nuke and Fusion, it will be the same thing, but you just deal with Nuke and Fusion interface. Yes, I know that Nuke is better and Fusion are better for compositing than After Effects. I agree with that, but actually, I loved After Effects. I do like to have all those titles, the masking tool, and so on. I'm a motion designer, so I like to do motion design, several shots together, add title, add particular, and other stuff. And for this, After Effects is very good. But if I would do only 3D compositing, strictly speaking, yes, I would do it in Nuke, I think. Or Fusion. But I like After Effects, and if you know how to do it, you can get some very good results. I'm saying that because every time I do something on After Effects, I have people saying that After Effects is crap for 3D compositing. And yes, they're right. They're right, but this is the tool we're using, and you can do some very good stuff with it. You can actually build a whole house with just a screwdriver if you are very, very, very good. It's not a good idea, but you can do it.
Right.
So yes.
One more quickly here. How we can use Cryptomat? Are you going to show Cryptomat and stuff like
Yes, of
that?
course.
Okay, so
Not today, but stay tuned. That will be the end of the month because I'll be showing a whole bunch of crazy stuff with masking and so on. But this one, we will see that with that masking, you can get some very good, very interesting results.
and last question for now to get this out of the way: which is the recommended way to save passes, from the save section or from the Redshift
I, I,
section?
I'll be getting there just in a few minutes. This is the next chapter.
coming up. So continue. Sorry for interrupting, and thank you very much for the answers.
So here, yeah, so everything is back together. So already you can do some stuff. For example, here the scene is very dark. I like it, but I might have a director or a client saying, hey, it's too dark. Can you brighten it up? And you can use, for example, the GI. The GI is perfect for that. The GI is just the reflection of the light that bounce on the wall, on everything. So all the secondary lighting, we could use here the exposure effect. And here we have the gamma correction. So let me show here with the simple. You can see how much detail I'm getting back. And this is typically the secondary lighting, the light bouncing. So just by doing that, you can see our scene is less contrasty, get some details back on the wall, and so on. And nothing is burnt because we're working in ACCG. This is the amazing thing with that. So for example, you can do that. We could work on the SSS. I want to have the candle to be more prominent. So let's use, for example, exposure again. Mostly you do almost everything with the exposure. And here I'm going to just increase the exposure settings. And now it's a bit more brighter. You can see here on the plant, on the piece of cloth, on the candle, and so on. So maybe let's go back to 3. Another one that I like, well, I will do that later. So anyway, you can do a lot of stuff with that already. Specular lighting, which is so important. You can see the result here, without. Maybe I would like to do the opposite, tune it down by using here the gamma correction, then lower the intensity. Okay, so we can go pretty far with that. And now we can see before, after. You can see the lighting, the light reflection is not as strong and is more even. So let's go back because I don't really like this result, but you can see it's already very interesting what we can do. So something else we could do here is just do some color correction using looks. So that's another new feature of After Effects, not so new, but it's been revamped recently, just last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, with the January update. You can use looks, which works a lot. It's a lot easier to use with ACCG. So here I'm going to add adjustment layer. Let's call it looks. And now let's load looks. And looks is already an amazing plugin. I love it. Let's dive into the interface. And you can see already everything has been set up. This is the new feature. So it picks up the color profile from After Effects, from the color management we chose at the beginning, and it applied the right preview here. Before it was pretty confusing, and you could do a lot of error, and you had this result. So people just say, yeah, it doesn't work, and went ahead. And no, see here, it works. It's just very nice. So now what you can do is just take in looks and just use, for example, a film looks or film emulation, and you can see the result. And everything you see here is working in ACCG. So we have some very good color response, and it's changing a lot in the image. We can go in the film looks, for example. So some are going to work better than other, but it's a very good way to see how it works. So let's go back to film illumination because I like this one. And maybe we're going to use here the film grade soft color. So I'm going to use it. And we have here all the different settings. So let's hide this one and see what all of them are going to do. So optical diffusion is going to add back the bloom, the glare, and so on. So you can see with, without. You can see it has a very natural look, very nice. And you can easily change it. For example, let's increase the density. and maybe even more the size. And here the glow. So you see it's even stronger. It has a very, very nice response, giving this haze everywhere. The halation, I really like it because we can see here you have some red on the very burnt highlight. You can see without it. This is very natural because you get this result with film easily. It's going to give you these red edges. Very nice. You can see with, without. I really like it with this effect. Then we have the channel mixer. Channel mixer is going to change your color contrast and so on. Film negative is going to give you just a standard look based on film stock. Colorista to do some color correction. Film print is going to give you another pass of film emulation. Colorista again, and this one renoiser is going to give you back some noise. For example, for this one, I don't think I like it. And there you can just change a few other stuff. For example, in the tools, use all the tools that we know how to love. For example, if I put just the exposure at the beginning, it's going to work on all the rest. So if I increase the exposition, you can see it works the way it should, because again, this is ACCG. And you can just disable, leave it, because you are looking for idea. You can use this one. I really like a spot exposure. For example, I'm going to add it, and it's going to add exposition to just one part of the image. For example, here. So let's go back here, and I'm going to increase the exposition on this part. You see, this is without masking. It works pretty well because it's just going to add this soft spot of color on top of it. So if we activate, you can see it works pretty nice. Another tool I like, just to give you a taste, because we're not going to spend much time on that, but I really love it. The color map. So color map is going to give you a very strong way to control your color. I'm going to use here the preset, change it to the color checker. So we have all the main color, and here we have some red. I'm sorry, some green. So this is the color green you're going to start with, and this is the one we're going to get. And for this one, I can change and have some very different results. You can see here on our plant, on the background, on the foreground, and so on. Everything changed accordingly. And this is without masking, just the sheer power of color correction. I know that Max in the background, which is an expert on that, must approve. I hope it does. So I really like to use that, because I'm not a colorist, but with this, I feel like one. So in the end, I'm not saying that it's a beautiful result, but it's interesting that we have all this liberty to, all of this freedom to do what we want. Okay, and when you are done, you're just going to apply the change. And this is our after. And if we take a look at the original one, this is the beauty without anything. This is the one straight from Redshift with the postfix. So we did already a lot of things on that. Okay, so before going back to Redshift to see a few things, there is one very important thing I forgot to mention when I did the other tutorial last year and before. When you are in After Effects, if you want to make a render of that, well, there is a trick. So let's use Control M to create a render. So first, you must know that you do not use Adobe Media Encoder. It doesn't work. It's not ACES compatible yet. It will be at some point, I hope. So do not use AME, Adobe Media Encoder. Use here the render file instead. And here, if you are going to choose an SDR format like MP4 or JPEG or PNG or whatever, you will need to do something. If you use here another output module, for example, using the OpenEXR, you don't need to do it. So here I'm going to create OpenEXR, modify. So if you just use here OpenEXR, that's it. That's all you have to do. It's going to work. You're going to output your image. This one, you will be able to load it in Fusion, for example, or any software that can handle EXR or After Effects, why not? But if you want to create just a simple JPEG, you need to do something. So let's go back here to JPEG. I'm going to click here on the thing, and you must do something here in the color, okay? You're going to change your output color format. So let's display all the options. You just need to choose this one, sRGB, display, SDR, video. It's going to bake all the ACs transform into the JPEG file. You do that only, I repeat, for SDR format. So JPEG, PNG, TIFF, ProRes, QuickTime ProRes, whatever format that is SDR, which is a lot of format. So SDR video, okay. Now I'm going to click, define somewhere, and let's call it final after render. Oh yeah, it's it's rendering a whole sequence. Okay, so we don't need that. Stop. And I have the whole bunch of identical image. Yeah, you don't need to do a sequence. That was a mistake on my part. But anyway, each one of this image is correct. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to load it. It doesn't want to show me from here. So let's go back here, final render, assemble, here it is. As you can see, this is the same output as what we have here. If you don't do that, you won't have the correct color. Okay, so really be careful with this. So if I want to do MP4, I need again to change. So here H264, and then you're going to color, change, display everything, this one, and this is going to work. If you don't do that, you won't have the correct color. Okay, and if you send it to AME, it's not going to work either. So be careful with that. Really, don't use EME, use the render settings we have here.
Can I jump in and make a comment here?
Yes.
A smart Alec comment. So the way, because color management is confusing, right? There's no question about that. I know things, but I'm still ignorant on this whole subject. People like Lionel, Max, Dr. Sassy, and so forth have, you know, a million times more knowledge. But one of the general concepts you need to think about is when you're working in a color managed environment. So your application, whether it's Fusion, Nuke, or After Effects, is adding that ACES or whatever color management on top. The way you need to think about it is the following. You have an image or some footage on a layer, and on top of that, you add an adjustment layer with, let's say, hue, saturation, brightness, and you change the colors. Color management in color managed applications and with formats that can accept color management, when you send it from one application to the other, the data needs to be that footage without the adjustment layer, if you can understand my analogy here, because that adjustment layer is going to be procedurally applied. And when I say adjustment layer, I mean the ACES transform and all that. It's going to be applied over whatever footage you put into the other software. But if you're saving a JPEG, then the JPEG itself does not have the capacity to hold that data that will allow that adjustment layer to be applied. So you need to bake all those color changes into each pixel as a color. So a color managed environment that happens procedurally from the application based on the data that's contained in the file, but doesn't affect the pixels yet. And that will be, again, the equivalence of an adjustment layer on top of some footage. So the footage has the raw pixel data, and the adjustment layer does all the changes you want. And I think that that is a way you need to think about it, that it's a procedural way to apply certain color transforms. And if your environment is color managed, that procedurality is retained. If your color management, if you want to put a JPEG image on a web page, there is no color management in a standard web page. So you need to bake all those transforms into the pixel data. Would that be a correct way to oversimplify it again?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's it.
Good.
Yeah, the adjustment layer is it's very very key now. It's very very close. Yeah, I want on the background I was doing something else. I just added to the composition an exposition exposure control to boost the emission, and because of all our optical glow, the halation and so on, we get this beautiful glowing. And I added more on the red channel to have this this red hue. So you see how powerful it can be. That's really what I like with compositing, the ability to change, to enhance your scene. But of course, you're not going to change it to a night scene. That would be possible. But here I'm just talking about enhancing the final result to get different mood, but of the same base image. All right, so let's go back to Cinema 4D. I want to address one of the questions. Yes, about the saving. If we take a look at our final render here, this is the EXR I've been using. It's 22 megabytes. Okay, that's a lot. All right. That could be even worse if I hadn't used the DWAA format. But let's see something. You have an option here, if you go to Redshift, to bypass the saving from Cinema 4D. If you use here the multipart EXR, okay, then I'm going to use depth here, the half float, which is the proper name. What I said earlier, here, this weird use 16-bit float. Okay, this is more accurate here. You see, half float. This is 32 bits, half float. Then the compression, DWA, which will be the default compression. And the one from Redshift is actually much better than the one from Cinema 4D. Now, I need to go to the save here. And I don't need this one, this multipass image, because we're going to use the one from Redshift. I do need to use the one to activate the one here. And I still want to have the regular image, SDR image. Okay, now let's go back to Redshift, to the AOV manager. And I'm going here to tick the direct pass for all of them and untick here the multipass, because you don't need to do both. And what's even better here, you have the opportunity to change your compression settings for each of your layer. So for example, I could change here the compression to a DWAB or zip or whatever, or have a higher compression for this one, for each one of these parts, and they will still be contained in one single multipart EXR. That's something you cannot do with Cinema 4D save file by default. Okay, it's going to save it to your project with a name, which is the one corresponding to the one of your application. So here, compositing start. Let's save it to compositing. I don't know, temp. That's a terrible name, but whatever. So now you can see here, it's going to take those tokens to give this result. So that's just what you need to do. Again, let's go to the render settings, Redshift, activate the multipart EXR, unless it's going to give you as many EXR as you have pass, which is a way of working, but I like to have all of them contained inside one EXR. And then you activate here the direct. So now if I just hit render, okay, I do want to write this JPEG. So it's going to render. They will see the size of the new file. and it created, I think, right here. We will see. So anyway, it's rendering. So yeah, it's pretty fast because I have a 4090 RTX card, because you have render of the whole complete scene in less than 1 minute. That's pretty nice.
You only have one 4090?
So here it's in final render compositing. Yes. So the final image is here, and take a look at that. 3 megabyte, down from 22. Okay. So you would think maybe it looks like crap or whatever, but it doesn't. So let's go back here to After Effects, and very quickly I'm just going to recreate a composite. So let's take this one, which is this one. Okay, let's open it. And I'm going to put the beauty on top of it. So this is the beauty. And now let's just recreate all this one. So this is just on add. Exact same result as the other one, but it's several times smaller. If we go back here, I can even copy paste this looks layer, put it on top of it. I can see it just works. There is no real flow on the image. So it's very good. And I haven't really optimized it, meaning a repeat. We will see that when we'll use pass, cryptomat, and so on. You can customize for each one of them your compression option. That feature alone is amazing because it's so powerful. If you really want to have all your details, you're going to use zip, for example. And for a simple mask pass, you can use DWA, DWB, and so on, and get the perfect compromise of file size and quality. So I would recommend really to use this one instead of the one from Cinema 4D, because well, it works better in the end.
That's great. That's amazing. Well, what else do you have to show? Because we can go through a few of the questions as well.
Of course, yeah. You go ahead. Yeah, we
Okay.
can. Yeah, we're going to have humorous stuff to show, but we don't mind to overflow.
Yes. So the first question that Sharon, my good friend Sharon, hi Sharon, asked a while ago, about an hour ago, is the convert to OCIO in Cinema 4D's color management and the project settings. What exactly does it do? Now, before you give the correct answer, I'm going to attempt to give an answer as I understand it, because I want to learn. When you have colors, not images, but colors, a color chip with a certain value, those values are the values you want to see on screen. And because you're loading a scene now that was created in Cinema 4D before OCIO color management was available, in order for those colors to render properly, the system needs to reverse transform them in a way that when OCIO is applying the color management, they will look approximately the same. So you can do it only once. You can't do it more than once, because every time you do it, the colors are going to transform backwards and backwards and backwards. But you do it once with older scenes, so your color picker colors are going to do a reverse transform, so that when OCIO is applied based on the settings you have, the visible color you're going to have is going to be very similar to your original color. Is that what it does? Because that's my understanding.
That's my understanding too. That's it. That's why you're not going to do it twice, because well, it's going to transform the color twice, and then you won't. You're going to drift from the color. Actually, I already recommend to read the Cinema 4D documentation, because it has very long and detailed pages about that explain in depth how it works. Really, it's very complete. and you have everything in it. It's a bit dry, it's technical, but it's interesting because once you know how it works, you won't get tricked by it. It's still better to know how it works than to learn by heart a recipe. I'm not very good at learning anything by heart. I just understand thing, and then I can remember and do it again. So yes, read the documentation. It's very good, and you can see there is a lot of example. It's well explained. It's very interesting read. You get this part just if you right click anywhere here, right click, show help, and there you have it.
Fantastic.
Okay, so yeah, yes, we're going to overflow because I haven't talked about the depth map. So I'm going to do that quite quickly because it's pretty simple actually. If you want to have the depth, first you need to know that you're not going to get good result. Maybe I can show my my other project I have created, where I do have yeah, this one. Okay, so what you need to do, it's not very obvious here, but if you take a look here, this is the Z depth recreated with a plugin. Okay, so it looks cool, but take a look at this. You see here the border here, and even worse, take a look at that. This is just horrible. You can't show that. This is the limit of Z depth you do in post prod. Okay. Most of the time, you'll be better off by creating your depth of field directly on the render engine, and now it works very well because the render engine are fast. It's not really a problem to do some depth of field inside Redshift. It's going to be fast anyway. But if you want to tweak your depth of field, you want to do it in post, and then you have to know a few things and not to do that. So here, that's just because I have put some very strong depth of field, and we have this piece which is very, very close from the camera, and the Redshift cannot guess what's behind. That's impossible. If you take a camera and shoot through a fence, a grid fence, you can almost make disappear. You can actually make disappear the fence just by focusing on the background. You're going to see through the fence. Here, we're still in a 2D image, so it cannot go through the fence. If you want to have good result, you will need to do 2 render. That's what I did here. You can see here it looks perfect because it is actually 2 render. 1, 2. Okay, so this is going to take 2 renders, so almost twice as much time. To get rid of this effect and have more freedom to use. Frankly, it would be better to do the depth of field right inside Redshift engine. But if you have a scene without this problem or this foreground object, which is here, I'm going to hide it. Then I can use the depth of field. That's what I'm going to do. So here, let's go to the AOV manager, and it's very easy. You take the depth and you put it there. All right, but you need to direct to have the Redshift output. But here you need to do a few things. Your filter type, you're better off using, I think, center sample. You will have not anti-aliased depth of field, which works better. Don't really have time to explain, but use this one, which is going to give you not anti-alias the depth, and you're going to use here the use camera near far. This is how you're going to set up your depth of field. So that means here I'm going to use on my camera in object the clipping, the near clip plane, near far clip. So here I'm activating them both, and then I'm going to see how far I can go there. So you can see here at 200 centimeter, I'm starting to clip through the wall. I don't want that, so I'm going to put it there. Same thing for the far clipping. So let's go back to 1000. You can see I'm going to hide the window and behind that the trees and so on. I can go further than that, but actually I don't need to because of the glass. The Z depth cannot see through the glass transparent object. So actually the depth of field I need is something more like something like that.
Feature request. I would like the Redshift developers to decouple the camera clipping from the near and far plane. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And also to have the Z depth going through the transparent object. So anyways,
Plus one.
I'm going to, you don't need to keep them activated. Okay, it's not necessary. It's going to remember the value you have here. So once I have done that, now I can do a render. So let's do it. Another one. And in Redshift, we will be using a plugin, which is, so you need to have this plugin, I'm afraid, which is Fast Bokeh Pro. It's amazing. It's only $50, and it gives you some amazing result. It's fast, very customizable, very, very good plugin. You cannot really use the one inside After Effects. It's not good enough. Okay, you're going to use this one, which is a very good, good price and very powerful. So here, yeah, it's almost, oh yes, I forgot something. Of course, you're going to disable the depth of field from the camera, otherwise it's useless. So let's go back to optical, deactivate the bokeh, render again. I could almost use one of my render, but maybe there is one quick question I could answer.
So let's quickly go. Ignacio, does After Effects Lumetri effect work with ACCG? Would you have any experience on that?
Well, I think it should work because After Effects now understand OpenColor IO, so everything is supposed to work with it, but it's something to try. I don't really like Lumetri, but rather use Lux and Colorista, which are very good for that. Or if I want to really do some color workflow, I'm going to use a Fusion. But that's something to test. I think it works with it. It should. It should.
A quick one here from Elikaram. So for ACCG, if I import a UV map, and I guess UV map refers to any data channel, so normal map, UV map, a bump, or anything like that, as a JPEG texture, do I import it as sRGB, or do I need to change the color profile in Photoshop?
No,
So
you can import it as sRGB like I did with the image. That's something actually I won't show about UVW, but you will see how you can import just a picture to have the right color space, and basically yes, you're going to set it up as sRGB in the inside After Effects.
if an image is not color managed, or even if it is, if sorry, let me rephrase that. If you have an image that can't hold color management metadata, like EXR, for example, wouldn't the sRGB and the RAW for a JPEG be the same?
Yes, if there is no color management, it should be. It's going to be as a raw at the raw file.
Yeah, because the general thing about color, visible color needs to be color managed because that's the purpose of color management. When it comes to data channels that where the data is transferred as a color data, so a bump map is just luminance values which we use to create elevations. A normal map is directions and so forth. So ideally, the actual pixel value of the color, the raw data, is the data you need for any data channel.
Yeah.
But you can take it into Photoshop and screw up the color management. And that means that the pixel value is going to be wrong. So it all depends on where the image came from. If you're looking, for example, if you're searching for high dynamic range images on Google and you screen grab one of those images, it's not going to be high dynamic range.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So sometimes these very simple concepts can confuse you. Oh, but it said HDR image. Yeah, but you captured it from your browser, which is not high dynamic range. It just
Mhm.
takes a screenshot. So you need to think about what is the data I'm picking. So even with a normal channel, if you screen grab it from your image search engine, there's a good chance that it doesn't have the correct data.
Oh,
So
yes, I'm
yeah,
most certain.
so go ahead, keep going, and we'll go to the other questions when you're done.
So yeah, something interesting. I have restarted After Effects. I actually created a new project, and there is, I don't know if it's a bug or whatever, but you can see here the result is wrong. This is not what we had. It's all clipped, looking ugly. So you need to go there, and you can see that Trickster After Effects has reverted to ACs 1.2, so 1.3 CG. All right, and now it looks the way it should. Be careful with that. I don't know if it's a bug or limitation. It looks like a bug. So anyway, so we're back here. I just want to use now the Z depth. So you have the Z depth. Let's put it on the bottom. I'm going inside, and it's all blank. Don't worry about that because you're going to tweak the range here using the black and white points. So if I just do that, magically we have our stuff. And here we can see this is not the result we want because this is a data image. Like Thanasis just said, you don't want to have a display. Here, you're better off using the raw to see the actual pixel.
And can I
Okay.
say something, a nice little thing that makes me seem smart? Now, a lot of people are wondering, why is it white before you do this? And the answer is quite simple. This is a high dynamic range image, which means you can literally store any value you want in any pixel. Now, color, as we understand it as humans, or when we look at it on the screens, is usually black, which is a value of 0, white, which is a value of 1 for each one of the channels, red, green, and blue. And above 1, if you have a red, green, and blue, all a value of 30, all your image is going to be white. Whether anything above 1 will give you a white image in the visible screen spectrum. But this is a data channel, and each pixel has a value of the distance in centimeters from the camera to the object that's in your render. So if the pixel that's rendering, it's 3 meters away, that will be 3,000. A value, that pixel will have a value of 3,000. So the image that Lionel opened, which was white, it's not because it doesn't have data, it's because all the data has a value above 1 because it's an absolute distance. And what Lionel is doing now, he's compressing that really large gradient so that all the values are between 0 and 1, and we get this visible result.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. And you can see it if I go back to 1 and I use here the info panel. You can see this real result here, the RVB, meaning there is data. It's seeing data that you don't see, but the computer sees it because it's over white. So we just compress here to something like that. That should be enough. All right. Okay, so now let's go back to our assemble. Now I'm going to use another adjustment layer. And here we're going to use Fast Bokeh Pro. And it's really an amazing plugin. So here you just use your depth map layer. So here the Z I have just tweaked. And now we're going to add some blur radius, and I can just pick here my focus point using here the focus point on the tower. And see, it just works. You want it to be on the background. Let's go to the background. On the wall, see, it's I really like it because it almost looks like magic. So you have to remember about the limitation I said earlier. If I had my plant on the foreground, it wouldn't work that nicely. But here you can see it's very, very nice. There is also some very nice feature you have here. I can't resist to show you. If I increase the blur radius, you will see that we might get this fringe effect I told you about a little bit. You can see it here. There is one killer feature. If you go to here, your zone control, you can use here the render each zone separately. So if I click on that, it's going to change. And if I go to here, my near zone, so this is the near zone, this is the focus zone, this is the far zone, and it's going to apply the depth, the blur independently, and then it's going to composite back everything. Thus, it's going to mitigate the issue of your fringe effect. So here you can just go to the focus zone and try to get everything there. So maybe I'm going to try to change. So it's a bit tricky to use. Try to change here our focus zone. Yeah, of course it doesn't work when I'm talking about it, but let's try. Yes, okay, that was this one. So now I have the entire chair. Okay, this is like a focal plane now. Now, if I go back here to my final composite, you can see the fringe effect is gone. If I deactivate this one, you can see before. So I'm nitpicking about details, but it's all about details, really. When I go back to the Pro, you can see it looks better.
That's
because
fantastic, actually. That's brilliant.
it's a very, very good plugin, but it won't do anything with the example I showed you earlier with the plant on the foreground, because it's too close from the camera. Okay.
Oh, technically, all depth of field post effects are wrong. Every single pixel is wrong. Don't think that this one works right.
Yes.
What in fact we're doing is we are minimizing the visual artifacts from all this wrongness to make them non-visible. All right, and this whole
Yes.
splitting it into back, middle, and front is absolutely genius, but it's absolutely wrong at the same time. And this is the essence of art directability. Make it wrong as long as it looks good.
That's it. It's a trick on the eye, so but it works very well because we're not very good with blurriness. You won't tell, well, it's fake, because most of the time you won't really see the difference. What's more, when you use actually depth of field, usually you use a very low value. Subtle depth of field like this one is very nice because it's the way camera works. You very often you don't have very strong depth of field. This one looks legit because it's contained, and now it's near perfect because of the feature here of the Pro. And what's interesting here again is that you can change your focal plane. You can increase or decrease the blur radius. With the depth of field rendered from the render engine, you would have to launch again a render. So that's very cumbersome. Well, that's it. That was everything on my list.
That's spectacular as always. And now it's time to go for quick question time. We need some sort of music jingle there. Ding, 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 question time. So I don't have a talent for singing, all right? And I irritate my wife when I do it, and my son. So let's begin with Pavel. I think you have a list. What are your most used passes? Now, I want to take a shot at this, and then Lionel is going to give us the actual answer. So I have a nice little trick, which is activate for each scene once all the passes, even the ones you know are useless, render them and see what has any useful data. You may discover one of your passes happens to have some useful data. And that is my sort of spitballing technique, and eyeballing and spitballing, or spitballing in someone's eye, right? That's the combination. But what is your advice on this, Lionel? What are your most used passes?
Almost almost tweak the GI because this is almost going to control the contrast of the scene. You can see here I'm getting back some details here on this corner just with the GI. It works very well. It's almost like you're going to dial in the contrast of your scene. It works most of the time on interior scene. And also, usually I tweak a little bit the specular lighting. Sometimes I'm going to add, for example, optical glow only on the specular.
Yes, that's my favorite one. So, specular lighting, which is the reflection of light objects, is ideal if you want to add blooms and glares and all that. They're ideal. Yeah, I would suggest that one.
So you can see here, it's very quaint, but you have some effect here on the reflection with optical glow. It's very subtle, but I like when it's subtle, almost invisible. Of course, also the emission. I showed the trick earlier, but if you use here the exposition, usually you get some very nice result because you can really burn your image, your emission, and then if you're going to use optical glow again, it's going to work and do some amazing stuff. And of course, you can just use some masking. So here I just increased the emission on the ball here because this is only the part I need. So it works very well with just a crude mask like that. And well, we will see next week when you decompose the diffuse lighting with the raw component. It's incredible what you can do. We will see that next week.
Oh yeah, compositing is you can get something that looks bland and make it look absolutely magnificent. So, anyone that, like me, I'm talking to myself now, knows, man, this is very important. I know you like to render directly and don't do anything because you're lazy. Do some stuff in post. It always makes things look better. So that's my general advice. So let's go to some very quick questions here, which this one was answered, but for anyone that missed it, can you view the individual AOV passes with Cinema 4Ds with Redshifts picture viewer? The answer is you have to activate buckets. So besides the AOVs, and Lionel can show this, you just need to activate the buckets in your render view. And that is also very important when you're using the ambient occlusion node to create ambient occlusion. It uses the final sampling to do the ambient occlusion, whereas if you don't have buckets, it will use the very low sample, 1 per pixel, so you won't get proper ambient occlusion. So turn on your buckets, Roy, and you're good to go.
As you can see here with progressive rendering, you almost don't see anything. You need to get the bucket rendering, and then it works. And some of the paths are just going to turn black. So yeah, bucket rendering.
Or white, depending what they are. So my friend Chris Priddy, in what instance would you choose adjust gamma over exposure? And again, I'm going to take my... so exposure is changing the linear. It's sort of multiplying the value. So it's a linear. Black is going to stay black, or the whole thing, the whole lighting range changes. Whereas gamma uses a curve. So you're going to have a different change of luminance in different parts of your image, depending on that data. Is there something for you to show there, Lionel?
Well, I'm trying something here with the gradient. If I put a gradient here, you can see, so this is really a linear gradient. It looks wrong, but this is the way it should look, actually, because the gradient you used to see is color managed already. It's on sRGB, there is like a curve on it. The real gradient for real light is something like that. But anyway, if you use here the exposition, you can see if you use the exposition, it's just going to shift the result. You can see it's like I'm sliding the thing right left. If you're using the gamma, it's like you're going to tweak the contrast, meaning that you're not going to the black part, the white part are going to get smaller, bigger, and this one is just going to slide it one way or the other. You can see the difference when I go very low here. I get to some gray. With gamma correction, you won't get that. It's you can see here the white stay white, and the black is just shifting around. I don't know if I'm very clear, but you can think as the gamma as the contrast. I know it's not the contrast actually, but it's easier to think it like that. I'm always simplifying a bit too much, but that's the idea.
Yeah, the problem with color management as a general process and as technology is that if you want to do it absolutely correctly, you can't simplify it. It is a complex matter, but most people do not require everything, so we have to simplify it. It's one of those contradictions where the more you know, the better you will do it. But in order to use it in your everyday life, if you are not part of a color managed pipeline, because that's another thing, and that's why it was created. And for example, Chris is asking, ACES CG tends to be too dark for my taste, so I generally use Rec 709 and so forth. Now, this is a way that color management in ACES is used by many users. I think the majority of users, but technically, using ACES as a LUT is actually wrong. It is part of the process to apply a lookup table or some color at the end, but the essence, 99.9% of what color management system and ACES in particular is not about applying a LUT at the end. But most people use it that way. And again, this is something we are trying because we have experts like Lionel, like Max, and like the magnificent Dr. Sassy. And especially Dr. Sassy has extreme in-depth knowledge about the whole system. He's part of the ACES beta
Oh
testing,
yes.
all that. Yeah, he's he is the god of color management. But what we are trying to do, and that's the major difficulty, is from this whole knowledge base of what color management is, what ACES is, what OCIO is, and everything, how it works together with compositing, with rendering, and so forth, input colors, output colors, monitors, and so forth. It's extremely difficult to distill a small amount of information so that we can present it in a way that is both correct and useful and simple. Now, for most part, everyone is going to be quite happy to use it as a LUT. And in most cases, the way it's being applied, although technically wrong, both in After Effects and Cinema 4D and so forth, you will get more pleasing results because the way light is handled is better than what it used to be. But don't be fooled by that simplification. We're just seeing the tip of an iceberg that is not 10 times bigger under the water. It's a million times bigger. So always the suggestion is read the specifications. They may be complex. Read the documentation. The more you understand how color management works, you will be able to make your lives easier. But the process of learning that is extremely complex. Your questions help us sort of demystify some of these issues, but I'm supposed to be a genius. I do not understand anything about color management. What I'm telling you is just, common sense stuff. I do not understand it. It is hard, but hopefully, we will get. There's a lot of people are expecting the new specification to come out. I think it's called ACES 2. Is that correct,
Yeah.
Lionel? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Waiting for it for a long time.
yes, anyone that's in the world of color management, they're awaiting it as the holy grail. So I'm just waiting for my colleagues to be happy about it, so I can present. I know more things about it. But anyhow, that is my little. Anything you want to add, Lionel, on the color management thing?
No, it's a very good sum up.
Thank you. So let me go. I haven't read this question by my very good friend Zach. So with direct AOVs, no sRGB pass will be added. Post effects.
Yep.
Is that correct?
I don't. Could you repeat, please?
So with direct AOV, no sRGB pass with post effects. The direct
Oh,
or yep,
with the output from Redshift, huh?
I think so. Zach, if you want to rephrase the question, we'll be very happy to answer it in the next few minutes. So now Sharon's asking a very interesting question. Uh, what happens if I add more materials? So the context of the question is when we press the convert to OCIO, that one in your project settings in the Cinema 4D project, then that is a one-time button in order to open up old scenes. If you create new colors, color chips, and you have
Mhm.
your color management set to whatever you have it set, those colors are going to be properly color managed. The only use case for the convert to OCIO is to open a scene from a version that was before OCIO color management in Cinema 4D, or if you created it without OCIO in Cinema 4D. And this will take all the color chips, reverse the transform colors, so visibly, and that's for brand colors and so forth, right? The brand colors that need to be visually perfect for various companies, the data, the RGB data of that color is not the same when it's color managed. So it does that reverse. So anything you make new is just going to use your project settings anyway. So that's only you hit it once, only when you bring stuff. If you are merging scenes, now mind you, this is one of the things that catches many people. Let's assume I'm opening a scene and I do the convert to OCIO, all the colors get reversely converted. So they look the same. And then you merge another scene that doesn't have OCIO. You can't do that because then the merged parts are not going to have color management. If you click convert to OCIO, then it's going to convert the new and the merged and the previous scene. So it doesn't work in those cases. If you want to do that, open up your two scenes separately, do the conversion, and then merge them after you've saved the new color managed versions, and don't do any other conversions. But if you if you want to destroy one of your, let's say you have a rivalry with one of your colleagues, all right, that's what I would do. Go to their computer, buy them a present, have a birthday party, and you sneak out, press in the scene they've been working on for days to get it correct, convert to OSIO 3 or 4 times, and then save it.
That's evil.
I know, but it's where's the fun without some? Make a backup. All right, let's be courteous here. Let them whine and cry and feel terrible for a couple of hours, and then say, "Oh, I've got this tool that reverses it," and just open up the backed up file. So there are ways to do this without causing too much stress, just a little bit of stress. But do you have any other practical jokes you can do?
I wouldn't dare, no.
Hide things from we're using the layer manager and all that. That's fun. That's fun. So I'm just going through random questions. Blake Anderson, how do you usually use Colorista in looks? I sort of forgot that you can use Colorista in looks. Any advice?
Oh, that's too long to answer. But almost Colorista almost looks like Lumetri. It's very very close. Huh? So you're just going to dial in your. I don't use it at 10% of its. I'm not a colorista, so actually, but typically here you're just going to mess with your midtone on the scene, then the highlight. Let's go to something. It's horrible, but you can see the idea, and the shadow would be maybe something dark blue. Then you're going to tweak your different color. It's very very close from Lumetri, almost the same thing. So
Which one do
if
you
you
prefer? Which one do you prefer?
Colorista because it's faster. It's integrated inside looks already.
So there we go. Colorista it is. No more
Yes,
details required. Done.
that's my personal taste. Lumetri is quite nice also.
You don't need to say personal taste. You can give a definitive answer. That's it. You know, people listen to you. You can sell them anything. So, Amanpreet, question: is there any order or serial, any order to place the AOV passes? I'm going to take that. So here's an interesting fact. Lionel touched upon that. There is no order. So here's the funny fact. If you're adding numbers, you get a series 1 plus 3 plus 5. Okay, you're adding these numbers, so that will be 8. 1 plus 3 plus 5 is 8. If you change the order, is 5 plus 3 plus 1 is again 8. That is called something in math. Because what you're doing with the pixel values is exactly the same. When you use an add to add more light, it's just adding the values of the pixels. So it doesn't matter what order you use when you're using the additive ones. There could be a potential that when you're using the multiply, when you're adding shadows and AO, they need to be on top. Lionel's going to correct me. But as far as the additive passes, the ones that add light to your scene, it's just
Yes.
like adding numbers in any order. You will always get the same result. Just place them in an order that makes sense to you.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, it's add. You do whatever you want. That's what I'm doing here on my screen. You can see I'm just doing rubbish. It works. It works because it's all add for everyone. Same result everywhere.
That's fantastic. Okay, Pavel has a question that will be for you. Lionel, what is the advantage of fast bokeh versus Frischlift lens care?
Well, it's cheaper. Also, Fast Bokeh Pro has this amazing thing, the zone control. It doesn't exist in Frischluft. Frischluft is very good too, really. That's what I used before. And now I use only this one because I think it's slightly faster. I'm not sure about that, but it feels faster. And there is this zone control you don't have with Frischluft. And everything else is there. The iris to have some shape you want for the bokeh and so on. So it's a very, very good plugin.
Fantastic. So Zach says I didn't. It's I think the follow up from the previous one. I didn't see an sRGB pass when EXRs are saved directly from Redshift, so we don't get an AOV pass with post effects applied when saving EXRs directly from Redshift.
Good point. That's what I thought. Well, I'm not sure, but maybe the main pass is I don't know. Actually, I don't think so. But you're right, because the beauty is without the AOV. So yeah, I don't know.
Experiment. We need to experiment on that.
Yes, more on that next week. Huh?
Excellent. Let's go to Chris again. 510 giant. I always read as 15 giant for some reason. What about preserving branding colors with the OCIO? Well, this is Chris. This is one of the biggest challenges. One of the biggest challenges, because in order to make a color look like your brand color, then and this is what the convert to OCIO was, it was developed to do that. But that's not an accurate science. It needs to reverse transform the data, making some sort of educated guess or something like that, and some algorithm, so that when the transform is applied on top, it will look the same. But if you change the way you're handling your colors in the process, then you've lost that. What I would suggest, so this brings up a huge topic about how to use color management properly. The only way, and this is, unfortunately, this is the only proper way to do it. You need a proper calibrated monitor, preferably an HDR monitor, a monitor that supports a good depth of color. You need to be in a light controlled environment. That's why you see that all the professional colorists their environment is dark. They have these shades over the monitors and all that, because all you have to do to destroy your colorization is turn on a light right behind you, right? Your screen is going to light up. So if you're going by theoretical numbers, then you look at the numbers, you add a bit of transform to your colors until that number matches or something like that. But essentially, when we're doing color management, it has to do with how that color is going to look at the final medium. And a very quick story, I think I've said it in the past. When I was working with advertising agencies, we were doing for a specific product some very heavily color managed images, and we spent a whole week tweaking the colors to the T. In fact, those posters were plastered on buses in Athens, Greece, where I used to live back then. And in Athens, in the center of Athens, all the street lights at night are yellow. So suddenly we had spent tons of time color managing to get the perfect prints. And everyone was watching it under orange lights, and everything was washed out. It was orange. So there are details like that, that, when you're creating something that is very specific to color, no one is going to see the same color unless everyone has the same monitor with the same calibration under the same circumstances. What you manage to do is a general consistency. So I've got a television which is 12 years old, right? All the pixels have been burnt out, and I always adjust it so we can enjoy movies. The colors are terrible, but we still enjoy the movies. There's absolutely no reason for the streaming service to color manage for my account, because my TV is terrible. Anyway, I'm not going to buy one anytime soon. So that's one of the problems with color management. It always comes to, where are you viewing it, where the end product is being viewed. And for every single monitor on this planet, unless it's a very expensive one, is under a specification and viewed under the same lighting conditions, everybody's going to see a different color. But I don't know, maybe for mathematical reasons or to sell it to your client, you have to be within some sort of framework. But that's a reality, that's a reality. I've got lights on now to make my face look beautiful and young and all that. That changes what I see on my monitors here. So, I have to turn off the lights if I want to see correct color. So there you go. That's the reality of the situation. Let's see. You still there, Lionel? Yeah, you are there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So another couple of questions, and then we're going to shut it down. Blood Rapture. Is it acceptable to work with C4D's default ACES workflow and render beauty as PNGs, as work, and so forth? I think you can take this now, Lionel.
Yes, if it's beauty and you just do some curve on whatever, there's no problem with that, because the PNG will have the color transfer baked in, no problem. But you won't do any compositing, multipass compositing with the PNG. It's just wrong. It won't work, or it won't be correct, I would say, at least. But no problem with just using a few curve and glow, and that's it.
I have an additional piece of information that in most rendered scenes, most images, if you actually save EXR with the DWAB compression, the chances are you're going to make, or even the WAA that Lionel showed, you're actually going to get images that are smaller than PNGs. So
need to say something, but PNG are actually slower than EXR. Yes. Believe it or not, I can tell you it's true. I wish I had the page to show you that, but PNG are slower than EXR. If you have proper EXR with the good compression and so on, it's faster than PNG, especially at very high resolution. Starting at 4K, PNG are something like several times slower.
Wow. I use PNGs only to irritate my colleagues. Just to let you know, there is a reason to use PNGs, to enrage people that know about these things. So you can still use PNGs. It will be slower. They'll be bigger. It will be clunkier. It's incorrect, but there are good reasons to irritate your colleagues. So, but yeah, EXR, this is something, it's a general advice. It's more modern. It's faster. It's implemented everywhere, including After Effects now. It can hold unlimited amounts of data, and it can hold multiple layers. So all these are options. There's absolutely no reason to use PNGs unless you're trying to irritate your knowledgeable colleagues. Let's see. We're coming to the end. The picture viewer.
Actually, I found the page.
Oh.
Or you can see on After Effects anyway, but it's also true for other software. But yeah, After Effects is pretty bad, especially with PNG, where you can see the PNG is absolute crap compared to a lot of other formats. EXR is not very fast either, granted, but it's still much faster than PNG. And it's look at the resolution. When you go high in the resolution, it's horrendous. You
That's great
see?
advice. That's great advice. See, that's not obvious unless you do one-on-one tests. So that is a really valuable advice. Can you switch to your Cinema 4D screen, if you may? Because the question by Roy, for clarification, I understand you use buckets and Redshift viewer to see the AOVs. My question was regarding the picture viewer. Okay, would you mind showing in your picture viewer the little tab that says multipass, if that is the question? Because you can see your AOVs.
Yes.
Unless you're talking about the direct AOVs. Do we see those direct? That actually might
No,
be.
no. If you use the direct AOV, it's you won't see it. So here, using the one from Redshift, you don't see it. But if you use the one from here, the usual multipass, you will see your AOV in the picture viewer.
Okay, now, so that's why I think Roy understands what you just said, but was wondering if you can see it with the direct AOV. The answer is no.
No, no. That's
Okay.
one of the limitations, but personally, don't really care about that.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Like it because PNG interpret correctly in default After Effects. Yeah. So that is habitual. So what Blood Rapture is talking about is, I consider it. I'm a person of habit, so I'd rather keep my bad habits rather, and that will spend me hours or years of my life rather than spending 5 minutes to adjust my ways. Like, that's my prerogative. But for people that do this for a living, I think that because time is your most valuable asset, right? Your talent, your ability to do things is a given, all right? The more experienced you are, the more creative you are, you're going to make things. Everything else has scales with time. And we all know that humans don't have unlimited lifespans. So my general life advice is that if you manage to adjust your habits so that you save time, that is the best thing you can do for your lives. Forget about your profession, right? You will take back time. So sometimes pushing through these older habits is a very good way to find more time to do the stuff you like rather than waiting for PNG sequences and all that kind of stuff. So that will be my life advice for today. don't
Yeah.
don't use PNGs. There you go. Don't use PNGs. I'm
but,
gonna
but
take
but really, yes. If your workflow works, keep it. I mean, there is no reason. If you want to make it better, yes, you can try to make it better. But if you like it, if it works, if your client are happy and you are happy, keep it. I'm very liberal about that. I mean, I don't want everyone to do exactly the correct stuff. I'm more about freedom. So if your way work, use it, but maybe don't tell it's the best way, because there is maybe better way to do it. But if your way is the best for you, this is the most important.
Yeah, and whatever makes everyone happier, right? If we're doing
Yes.
our job every day, we're in the grind, and we feel compelled to do certain things we don't like, it doesn't matter if it's wrong or right. I do believe that quality of life is the most important thing. That's why I don't get burnout, because I do pretty much whatever I want. So excellent. I think we've come to the end of this stream. I want to thank, first of all, Lionel for sharing his extremely helpful and deep, insightful knowledge with everyone, including myself. And thank all our viewers for participating. And you are the people that make these shows, right? I can sit with Lionel and have these discussions, but it's different when we do it with our audience. So don't forget, you find all the links up in the various chats. If you've missed any part of this, go to the Max on Training Team YouTube channel and check the recorded sessions where our beloved Dr. Sassy adds timestamps and comments and all that. So yes, I will want to wish you a great week, and join us next week because Lionel has more to
Yeah.
say. a lot of those are the questions you're asking.
The fun stuff will begin.
Excellent. Well, Lionel, thank you again for coming. I think I'm on the wrong side. I have to look. I can see the monitor is there. Sorry, the monitor is, oh my God, this is so confusing.
Yeah.
So I have to pretend I'm looking the other side to say,
Yeah.
so Lionel, have a great day. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you to you too.
Bye-bye.